Last Friday, we had Tanya Rust as a guest speaker. Tanya is certified with the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association, and she is certified as a Canadian certified counselor. That means that we had to use all of the funds that we had in our youth budget to have her speak on Friday. Therefore, we can't even afford styrofoam cups for our Christmas party, and nor for the hot chocolate that was supposed to be in those cups. Just kidding. We actually don't have a budget regardless. Anyway, Tanya wanted to talk to you guys about anxiety. And there's plenty of reasons to be anxious. Some of the reasons you guys said was the future, school, exams, projects, the whole corona lockdown, government, mask vaccines, all of those things that are happening. Some of you even said socializing, which was pretty funny. Now, how do we cope with it? So you have a problem, and then how do we deal with that? We have several options. One of the options is to analyze and then fix the problem, or we could just ignore it, procrastinate the problem, and do something else. And some of you guys said video games, eating, snacking, sleeping, napping, scrolling on social medias, binge watching movies and shows, or clean your room, or do something that's productive, but just not at the right moment. And then what do we do with all of that? Well, most of the time, we judge ourselves and harshly for this. And it's kind of weird that we do that. It's like one part of us judges the second part of us for trying to make ourselves feel better because a third part of us is anxious. Now, before you start claiming yourselves as having multiple personality disorders, which I know nothing about, so I'm not in a position to make that claim, or before making yourself checked out or whatever, let's try something else. And Tanya encourages us to show compassion to ourselves, to show compassion to the part that is struggling and trying to cope with everything going on in our lives. We need to have compassion the same way Jesus had compassion on the crowds before feeding them, as it says in Matthew 15:32. Then Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I have compassion on the crowd, because they have been with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat, and I am unwilling to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way. Jesus had compassion in many situations for different kinds of issues, and they all had to do with the physical, with their personal problem they had in their life. So either one was blind, other were lame, and so forth. And in this case, they were hungry, and it okay, they're hungry. It's not a big deal, but still, he had compassion on them, and he healed them. He fed them. In the same way, we need to show ourselves that compassion, forgive ourselves, and start healing and making progress. Also, I would add personally that if God has compassion and forgiveness for you, who are we that we can't be compassionate with ourselves or forgive ourselves? As school is nearing to a close, exams and projects are due, Tanya challenges you to notice what parts of you come up in the next week. See if you can be curious about those parts and see if you learn something you didn't know before. Don't ignore the parts of you that raise problems and make you anxious. What it would be like if you would turn towards that, towards what you're feeling, instead of ignoring it or pushing it away. Try being curious about what that anxious part of you is concerned about, what it's trying to tell you. Or, well, I guess, what are you trying to tell yourself? What gets in the way of being compassionate towards yourself? What steps can you take to be more compassionate towards yourself? What do you need to remind yourself of in order to be compassionate towards part of you that seem overwhelmed or uncomfortable? How can others support you in this journey? And I'd also ask, how can you support others in their journey?